afternoon. Welcome to the Big Show. The Big Show comes at you every single day, right about 5 o'clock. We're a little bit late today, but that's okay. And we are always willing to talk about everything that goes on in the world of Pittsburgh sports. And today, obviously, Mike Tomlin met with the media, talked a lot about a lot of different things. And one of the things I would tell you about Mike Tomlin is he's always very good at basically making sure that everybody knows that he doesn't look at the media, doesn't read media, doesn't know what is written and everything else. And today it was one of these things where he talked a lot about the idea that he had no idea that Phillip Rivers was signing with the Indianapolis Colts. I will tell you, I think that's nonsense. Obviously, he knows what's going on, and the bottom line is with him, it comes down to he just wants everybody to know that he doesn't really read anything or care about anything that's written, and I think that's okay, but. He met with the media, talked about a lot of other things. Obviously, there's some injuries we'll talk about. There's a lot of different things. We're brought to you by FanDuel Casino. It's one of those things where I think that FanDuel we'll talk a little bit about later. We've got a couple of NBA games we'll take a look at, and obviously you can always bet on them all the time when it comes to one of these things where it is basically there's a lot of different ways that you can bet on sports on your phone. And I think one of the things is, we will talk about some of the NBA games, some of the NHL games, all those kinds of things. But first up, let's talk about the Steelers. Okay, it's one of those weeks where everybody is going to hold their breath because they're playing a team who's not very good. And the team they're playing, because they're not very good, the Dolphins, everybody will think, oh, boy, this is the game where the Steelers are going to basically just sort of roll all over them. And, it's not necessarily the case. It really isn't. I think the Dolphins have played a lot better recently. They've won, 4 or 5 games in a row. They're back in the playoff hunt. They run the football pretty well. I think it's one of those teams where – there are a number of people that would think, oh, well, if the Steelers lose to this team, it's a horrible loss. I don't think it's that horrible. I think they're pretty good, actually. Joining me now, the host of Steel City Pregame, that would be John Phillips. John, I think everybody's bracing themselves for the Tomlin game and all that other stuff. They're playing a bad team, and it's one of those things where I don't know necessarily that the Dolphins are really that bad. I just think that they got off to a bad start this season. They're in the playoff hunt. If the Steelers were to lose at home, it'd be disappointment. But do you consider it a quote-unquote Tomlin game?
No, I think, they're catching a hot team right now. And thanks for having me on your show, Paul. I appreciate it greatly. The truth of the matter is that this team's going to come north. It's going to be like 8 degrees on Sunday. And I don't care. Somebody told me they can simulate cold weather in South Florida. Give me a break. This team does not play well. They did play well Sunday against the Jets, but it was the Jets. They're facing a team that's coming off an emotional high. Let's see if this team, the Steelers I'm talking about, if they can roll this into Sunday and have a good game plan. Their quarterback looked good. DK was great. They had great chemistry. The defense came out real sharp. I think they can parlay that against a very a team that's just caught a run against some bad teams. They've beaten, some decent teams. They've had a couple decent wins, but they're definitely better than Miami. And I think that, the big win against Baltimore helps them tremendously Sunday.
It does, but when you look at Miami, the Dolphins, I think they've got some good weapons. If Tua, I can't even pronounce his last name, but if Tua plays well, I think the Dolphins have enough weapons and enough good players that this is not a game where you look at it and say, well, if the Steelers were to lose to this team, it would be atrocious. Clearly it wouldn't be great, but I don't know that it would be an atrocious loss.
No, again, they're catching a team that's on a 5-game winning streak. I mean, if they put things together and it's a 3-point decision and it goes Miami's way, yeah, that really it validates what they've been doing, especially against even an up and down team this year. This has definitely been one of the wildest Steelers seasons I've seen in a while. Chain's a pretty good player for them, obviously, and look, if Tua is on his game in any capacity, they're going to be in it. But I think if they get to Tua, if they can rattle him, it's going to be cold. And I don't care, again, what anybody says. When a team like that in South Florida has to come north and it's going to be 8 degrees, it's going to have an impact on them. I think that's going to play a factor on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, again, but I've always often done this. I mean, I always used to laugh when people would talk about, for instance, well, Warren Moon won't be able to play in the snow and the elements in Pittsburgh because he's from Houston and they're playing in a dome. And I'm like, he played his college football at Washington, and he played about 10 years or whatever it was in the Canadian Football League. What are we talking about here? So you have to look at every player individually. I mean, I think one of the things is the Dolphins run the football very well. The Steelers haven't been great at stopping the run. And so that's got to be at least part of the equation and part of the reason you say this is not going to be nearly as easy of a game as we thought it would have been, 5 or 6 weeks ago, correct?
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that completely. 5 or 6 weeks ago, we're probably looking at this a lot differently than we are right now. Look, the Steelers have had a hard time stopping the run. They did again on Sunday. I think it was 188 yards, 189 yards rushing they gave up. It was not good, or maybe it was closer to 200. I know there was a big disparity there.
217. It was 217 to like 40, basically.
40, yeah. So it was a huge disparity, and look, they've got to stop the running game Sunday. They got to force Tua Tagovailoa to throw the football. If they can force him to throw the football, they've got a real good chance on Sunday. Pressure the quarterback. Obviously, the pass rush has to be there. They had a good portion of that on Sunday. At times with Lamar Jackson. I don't think Tua is as dynamic as him, but if they can slow down the running attack, if they can keep that under 80 yards, they've got a real good shot, because they've got to force Tagovailoa to throw the football. That's when he's at his presumably at his worst, and he makes mistakes. And the secondary played a little bit better on Sunday. Overall, defensively, they were better on Sunday, but I do like their chances this week, which is bad news for everybody, because every time I pick them to win, they lose.
Well, I mean, I think everybody, every time they pick them to win, they lose. I mean, they've been basically win, lose, but that's what sort of mediocre teams do, isn't it? I mean, they're not able to be consistent, and if you're not consistent, it leads to what we've seen from the Steelers. I want to get your opinion on it, because, you're like me, an old guy. Phillip Rivers, who's like 90 years old. He's not. He's 44, but he hasn't played in 5 years. He's got like 15 kids. He's got grandkids. He's coming back to play for the Colts. Is that just a case of desperate times call for desperate measures? Or, could you see a scenario where Phillip Rivers actually is decent when he comes back and plays for the Colts?
Yeah, I would think he's got to stay on the practice squad for the entire week, from what I understand. I don't know if they can activate him Sunday. Maybe they can. 44 years old. He's going to be, the fourth oldest quarterback if he does play and start to get a start in the NFL. I mean, it does smack of desperation. Indianapolis is in a dogfight right now. They not only are they now chasing Jacksonville, who is now 9-4. They've got Houston breathing down their neck. Houston is now poised to make a possible run at a playoff spot, and they could overtake Indianapolis. So all of this is kind of weird. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that he wanted to play, although I guess maybe I shouldn't be. Athletes never want to retire, generally speaking. A lot of them are forced to retire. They're not good enough, whatever it is. Rivers played a long time. He's a Hall of Famer for sure. I'll be shocked to see how he actually plays. I mean, he'll give it he's a competitor. I'll say that much. One of the biggest trash talkers probably in NFL history, quite frankly, from what I can gather. But I don't expect a whole lot out of a 44-year-old quarterback who hasn't played in almost 4 seasons.
John, we'll obviously talk to you again on Sunday, or actually Monday in the pregame show. John is the host of Steel City Game Day. John, thank you so much, man.
Paul, you're the best. Thank you, friend.
All right, brother. That is John Phillips from Steel City Game Day. Now we're going to go to the guru of all things football, and that would be our good friend Chris Carter from the Post-Gazette, host of Locked On Steelers podcast, covers the Steelers for a living. And Chris, it feels like the Steelers are getting some good news on the injury front, but you obviously cover it every single day. What are your thoughts on that?
The big news is that Derek Harmon is looking like he's in the we'll let participation be our guide category for players, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. He's been out the last 2 weeks, and they've been run over for the last 2 weeks. This week, they found a way to mitigate it, and I think that they did a good job containing Derrick Henry. But there's no doubt that Derek Harmon needs to be a big presence of this run defense. He was drafted to be so. Mike Tomlin said, hey, he's a first rounder for a reason. That's why we went and got him. But also because the Steelers additions that they made and the move they made to build up the depth chart on this defensive line have basically all been knocked out for the season. Dan Aquali was the veteran that they brought in. He's been missing for pretty much most of the season due to injury, and now he's suspended for PEDs, even if he did somehow make a miraculous comeback. Isaiah Loudermilk was the veteran that they kept long-term. Dean Lowry was an older guy they brought in. All 3 of those guys out for the year. And then when Derek Harmon's out, then you're resulting to the 8th guy that was in training camp at DT, Asezi Otomowo. And so they were in a tough spot there. But getting Derek Harmon back is a huge boost. It gives yourself a chance to get a rotation. Y.A. Black doesn't have to start. He can be the first guy off the bench, when it comes to those 3-man fronts. So I think it's a big boost there. DK Metcalf, it seems like he's fine with whatever stomach situation that he had coming out of the game where he had to stay in Baltimore an extra day in the hospital. So I think all things in general, good news for the Steelers as they look like they might also get back Kyle Duggar at the safety position. So they might actually be getting healthy this week.
Well, and I think that's obviously anytime you get players back, it's obviously a good development. You were Mike Tomlin spoke with the media today, and of course said a number of different things. What were some of the highlights, at least in your mind, of things that he talked about? Was it just the fact that he talked about players coming back, or were there other stuff that you thought about? Wow, that's pretty good stuff.
I thought it was really interesting, just when we were I asked about the run defense and different things there. And Mike Tomlin, I think he's a guy who doesn't like to tip his hand much that when you ask him questions about what he does. But I do think sometimes you can read through the lines of what he's saying and get a sense of like, okay, this is what he's at. Like weeks ago, when I was asking him about James, why would Darius Slay start over James Pierre coming back from injury when James Pierre's played much better than Darius Slay did? And he was just basically like, yeah, pedigree. And then when I kind of pestered him about it, he was like, yeah, whatever. He kind of blew it off, but it was because the whole time he was going to start James Pierre, and it was just he wanted to not have people be on the trail. So when I ask him questions, sometimes I try to get things from him, and I thought today there wasn't anything like groundbreaking in this one, but I did like the way that he talked about the way they plan around the run defense. This was the 3rd time, Paul, the Steelers have been outrushed by at least 100 yards when facing the Ravens since 2020 that they've won. And I asked what goes into that plan. He talked about matchups, and he talked about, finding other things that you need to win with. And I thought that was kind of something that I think gets overlooked that this team does. And it's not just against the run. When they face other teams, like earlier this year, both Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson each got 100 yards receiving, but they found ways to mitigate other parts that were strengths for the Vikings enough for them to get that win. It's something that I think the Steelers have been good at doing in the Mike Tomlin era, is they're like, hey, you know what? You may have this guy over here that's really good. He's gonna get something. He's gonna do some numbers, but he's not gonna break us. And that's when usually the Steelers are at their best. And I think this week that's gonna be Devon Achane if he plays for the Dolphins, because he's a dynamic threat out of the backfield.
I think one of the interesting things is the Dolphins run the football reasonably well. Derek Harmon coming back obviously will help. It's one of those things where, this probably is, maybe you disagree with me, but this is probably the critical matchup when you look at this game and say, okay, which way is it going to go? I look at who's going to win the battle, the front seven of the Steelers or the offensive line of the Dolphins in the running game. Because if they run the ball well, obviously Tua is able to, do his thing. I don't know what are your thoughts on their ability to run the football?
I mean, I think it's what makes them a competitive team. They have the 8th most rushing yards, the 5th highest yards per attempt. They have the 28th most passing yards and the 22nd most net yards per attempt. So, Paul, I think that you're right on the nose there. This team needs to run the football to succeed. I think I saw a thing that said that, we were talking about, how Aaron Rodgers hasn't completed a pass of over 20 yards in the last, in the past month, and he hit for 4 such passes in this game. I think I saw a stat about Tua not being able to hit a pass for more than 15 yards for I think 3 games straight. And this Miami team's hot. The Steelers just put out a hot team in the Ravens. The Ravens had won 4 out of their last 5. This Miami team's coming in winning 4 straight. They got to ice them out. They got to take away what they do well, and not give them other places to succeed. I do think there's a chance to do that in this game. If you limit Devon Achane, don't let him break the game open. I posted this stat earlier too. Derrick Henry, you might look and say, well, he had 94 yards. They didn't stop him. No, but they didn't let him break the game open. And when you look at it, there's been 7 times they played Derrick Henry in his years with the Ravens and the Titans. They are 5-0 when they hold him under 100. They're 0-2 when they let him get over 100. So when you let him have the game-breaking plays on top of, just being a good player, making occasional good runs, that's when you lose to him. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Devon Achane. He is an explosive runner. This team wants to run the ball. You keep that contained. They might get a run here and a run there. They might end up with 150 yards on the ground. But if they have to do like 30 to 40 runs to get there, I'd say more like 40 plus runs to get there. It's going to take them a while to get there, to do that. And that's what this Steelers defense needs, is to slow things down. And if Derek Harmon's back, I think it's easier for them to do that. I think the average of yards per game on the ground allowed jumps from like 96 yards per game with Derrick Henry to like 150 or so without Derrick Henry. So they need him back. And if he is healthy and he is playing this game, I think it's a big boost against a key matchup that could help them win what is an important game, Paul. Because if they win this game and the Ravens lose Sunday, that magic number now drops to 2, where the Steelers would just need to win one more game and then hope that the Ravens lose at any other point this season, and they will have clinched the division.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that's why it was so critical to win the game, 2 days ago or whatever it was against the Ravens, because it gives you some tiebreaker opportunities. It also puts you in first place. Chris, what are your thoughts on 44-year-old Phillip Rivers getting a contract? And apparently, I just looked it up again because I was, trying to figure it out, but it looks like he could be eligible to play as early as Sunday. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Ridiculous. I get the Colts are hurting. They're in a rough spot. Riley Leonard's hurt. Anthony Richardson's hurt. Daniel Jones is out for the year. This is a disaster for them. I think they're getting a guy who's played, I guess, for them recently. But man, like, if I'm Phillip Rivers, I have to be I can't imagine like getting that phone call, right, and being like, "What? I was just hanging out with my grandkids." Like that's, and he literally is a grandfather. Like it's completely ridiculous. I do not expect that to go well. I thought the best reaction was Mike Tomlin. Our guy Jerry Dulac asked Mike about it in the press conference, and he was like, but Jerry was like, you have a 42-year-old quarterback. What do you think about a 45-year-old quarterback coming back and playing? And Mike's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it was just, and he was like, oh, Philip Rivers coming back. He's like, okay. Yeah. I had no idea, and that's not my business. He's just like,
I think he panicked because he thought maybe that someone had some intelligence or inside information that Ben Roethlisberger was coming back at that age, right? So I think he panicked.
That would be nuts. That would be really funny if that's where he was just like, no, that's not a thing. But yeah, I just think this Philip Rivers thing is a big reach. But I kind of get it, because if you're Shane Steichen, how long has he been there? Is this his third or fourth year with the with the Colts? And
yeah.
This is I'm pulling it up real quick. I just want to make sure this is his third year with the Colts. He was 9-8 his first year. He was 8-9 last year, and this was the year where they came out red hot. They were 7-1 at one point. They were unstoppable. Everyone thought that he had figured it out, and he was the new hot super genius offensive mind. And then he wasn't. And now you're seeing the Colts kind of flop. I would not be shocked, Paul, if this Colts team loses every single game and they finish 8-9 for a second straight year after starting the season 7-1. And not just because I think they're falling off a cliff, but because when you look at that schedule, it is rough. They lost to the Jaguars this week. They have to play in Seattle this week. That's a loss. I'm sorry. They have to come back home. They come back home to play the Niners. That's not a good matchup. Then they got to play the Jaguars again in Indianapolis. Not a good matchup. And then they got to go to Houston, who's playing some really good defense. You play 4 playoff teams down the stretch, and you got Philip Rivers as your quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just they're in a rough spot there.
Especially at his age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what are we talking about at his age?
He hasn't played in 4 years. Like that, it's not even like Aaron Rodgers can say he played last year, right? This guy's got to get it all back. I think
it's a disaster. It won't shock me if he tears his Achilles or something like that. Obviously, I don't want that to happen. But I mean, he comes back. He hasn't played. He's not. I mean, I agree with you. It's a disaster. Chris, when you look at the Steelers, I've had a number of people in these comments ask me, why do they win a week, lose a week, win a week, lose a week? And my answer is very simple, and that is they are just sort of, maybe a little above mediocre, and that's what happens. They're a little inconsistent, and they're a little above mediocre. I mean, you obviously are closer to it than me, but is that pretty much as simple of an answer as you can give somebody?
They're an inconsistent team. That's just the bottom line of who they are right now. And I think the thing is that when you look at how this team is played, you see 1 week this part succeeds, another week this part succeeds, but it's been very rare that one thing has been a constant. And I think there's some praise that deserves from that in that this team has found different ways to beat you. Like the deep passing game was non-existent for a month, and all of a sudden, boom, it explodes against the Ravens in a must-win game. The run game has been non-existent. It would not shock me if all of a sudden the run game just appears out of nowhere on Monday Night Football, and Jaylen Warren goes for 100. But like maybe the passing game shorts out. Maybe the defense gives up some more plays. This team has been kind of all over the place, and I think partially it's because of this happens to teams that are trying to rebuild and figure things out. But I think they're also figuring out TJ Watt's still a very good player, but he's not the superstar that he was when he was getting 22 and a half, 19 sacks in a season. And I think that they're trying to find a way to mitigate that with different things while they don't have another superstar element that could just one person take over a game in one big moment. It needs to be collective efforts. But I think when you're a team like that, when you have resilience, when you have fight, when you don't give up, and when you persevere through tough moments, the way Joey Porter did with some of his penalties, and he breaks up that pass in the end zone, in this past game, when you're Alex Highsmith and you're tackling guys out in space, chasing down Lamar Jackson all game, and you finally get him on the last play of the game. That's the kind of stuff that can help you win tough games. And Paul, we're talking about the Steelers being a little bit above mediocre. I don't know too many teams that look too dominant this year. So like this is a year where I think there's a lot of parity showing in the NFL. The Steelers they're the team in the middle of it with no franchise quarterback. Like they don't have MVP Josh Allen, MVP Lamar Jackson, MVP Patrick Mahomes. They don't have Joe Burrow, who's the two-time comeback player of the year. They got 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, a young offensive line, a run game that sometimes is there, sometimes isn't, a defense that was supposed to be really good, is good in spurts, but doesn't always play really good. And somehow they're right in the thick of it. So I think they're an inconsistent team, but I think a lot of teams this year are inconsistent, and that could be interesting to watch down the stretch.
He's Chris Carter. Chris, thanks for jumping on. As always, he breaks it down better than anybody else. Chris, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, that's Chris Carter from the Post-Gazette. This is what, we talk about Steelers because I guess we're on the Steelers channel. I don't know what the hell we're doing here, but this is what I've really been waiting for right here. And this is our good friend Jason Mackey, who was in Florida somewhere doing winter meetings. And Jason, I mean, what was the Pirates, to your best knowledge, what was their actual offer to Kyle Schwarber?
4 years, upwards. It was 4 years and at least $120 million. I believe a little bit above that.
If he would have
it's not
signed,
terrible, Paul. It's not.
If he would have agreed to this deal, they would have signed him. They would have paid him $30 million a year.
Yep, that's correct. Upwards of 30, technically.
That is amazing to me, and I've been very skeptical of all this stuff.
Yep.
They've been in on a number of different guys, Jason. Mm-hmm. My question is, in the next week or two, are we going to see them actually spend that $30 million that apparently was there for Kyle Schwarber?
I think we're going to see them spend it. Maybe I don't know if we're going to learn it in the next week or two. I think we are going to see them. I mean, seriously, and that's a Major League Baseball problem more than it is the Pirates. Like, this stuff just has moved at a glacial pace. It should move faster. But like, do I think the Pirates can pay somebody $30 million a year? Yes, I do. I don't know if that's the right strategy. I personally, I think, like, if they missed on Schwarber, but they're willing to spend $30 million, I'd almost rather them spend $20 million on a player and then extend Connor Griffin. But like, right. Is that amount of money too much? No. I mean, they're telling us it's not too much. They made an offer to Kyle Schwarber. They would pay him upwards of $30 million. So, I mean, yeah, I think they're going to find somebody and pay them that amount of money.
Has Paul Skeens made it pretty clear that he's going to become a free agent? Like, couldn't they spend $30 million on him and try and keep him in the loop for 10 years or something?
I mean, yes. My understanding on Skeens, Paul, is that, it's kind of a non-starter for him until they win. And he's a very regimented, simple person when it comes to that. Like, if they're playing winning baseball, let's have that conversation. Until they're playing winning baseball, we're not having that conversation.
That's my question, is like, I can understand why he wouldn't want to sign here, but by the same token, I'm looking at it and saying, you know what, if they were able to put a couple of guys around him that are pretty good with him and Jared Jones, and, Jared Jones is coming back, right? You've got him.
Mid-season. He won't be ready to start, but mid-season.
Do you think that they will trade Mitch Keller this offseason?
At the beginning of the offseason, Paul, I thought so. Not so much anymore. Ben Cherington, we just talked to him a little bit ago, and I asked him about the number of incoming calls that he's getting. And he said he's getting there a ton, but it's nothing particularly close. That basically, if they're going to trade a starting pitcher, and that's who people have been interested in, their starting pitchers, the only way he would do it is to get immediate lineup help. I don't know if that's the way it's going to work. I think their target for a trade is going to be somebody who is in one of the final years of their deal, and they have to give up prospects to get that guy. I'm not sure it makes a ton of sense for them to trade Keller. I think a team can probably look at Keller and get something on the open market for him. They could probably just buy that via free agency and not give up anything. So at this point, as we sit here today, and this is kind of ebbed and flowed, but I don't think Keller gets traded.
How about Reynolds?
No, absolutely not. No, not even a consideration. No.
Is it because they think he's a big part of their team, or because they don't think they'll get the return for him?
Both. Both. I mean, to be fair, like, that's bad business. You're selling an asset at its lowest point at that point. I don't think it makes sense for them to trade Reynolds. And frankly, like, I don't think last year was representative of who he is. And I don't think they think that either. I think whether, he was not healthy, I think that was part of it. A new hitting coach, I've had that thrown my way as a theory, that he was really close with Andy Haynes, didn't really buy into the Matt Haig stuff all that much. Just had a baby at home. I don't know. And maybe it's a combination of all of it. Maybe he just didn't have a good year. I don't know. But I don't think Brian Reynolds suddenly turned into a bad baseball player, and I don't think they're going to trade him. Man, it just doesn't make any sense.
Will the Pirates get involved with Pete Alonso?
I doubt it. I mean, based on what they're doing here, it wouldn't surprise me if they checked. Colin Beasley actually, he did his best to nudge his way into a Scott Boras scrum and asked him about the Pirates, which was great. I loved seeing it. But Boras said he's gotten some contact about Pirates guy. Like the Pirates have been in contact with Boras about some of his players, and he didn't specify whether it was Alonso. Man, they really like Spencer Horwitz. I know that that's like, not a reason to not sign Pete Alonso, right? Like obviously Pete Alonso is a better player, but I think they're probably going to concentrate their efforts elsewhere. If they're going to, give out a $30 million contract, it's probably going to be for some other position.
How about Cody Bellinger?
No, that's one I could see them going at. Bellinger, I could see them making a run at. I don't think they'll land him. I think Bellinger is going to have other options. The Yankees seem like the best fit there, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's like the next frontier for Pirates' interest if they tried to do something there. I'll tell you the guy who, if you're willing to pay a guy $30 million a year, Paul, who I think would address one of their needs in a big way, is Eugenio Suarez. And if you're telling
he's a guy that's been on the list of them being in on, or whatever you want to say, or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
interest. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why do you like him?
Because this is going to be a weird explanation, but he's slightly deficient. He's not very good defensively. He might hit for a low average, but he's probably going to hit you 40-plus home runs, and that's what they need. The Pirates don't need defense. I don't care about their third base defense. I want to see offense. I want to see them have some guys who can hit in the middle of the lineup and put the ball over the fence. They don't have that. And so you can not get a discount, but like they could pay $20 million a year and get Eugenio Suarez. And if you're going to pay Schwarber 30, pay Suarez 20 and extend Connor Griffin. I would rather take that. I'd sign up for Suarez plus Griffin versus Schwarber. Maybe that's an unpopular take, but I think you can do a little bit more with that $30 million. And I don't think you lose that much in terms of player.
Speaking of guys who are deficient in the field, I mean, obviously if you bring in Schwarber, you hope that you can bury him in right field or something and that the ball never gets his way because he's not very good defensively. But in PNC Park, I can see the allure of him. I mean, he might hit 65 home runs at PNC Park. You look at the Pirates, and I think a lot of us and a lot of people are very skeptical because there's been all these leaks that they're trying to spend money. At the end of all of this and going into spring training, will there be, do you think, at least a couple of guys that are signed that maybe aren't traditional kind of, scrap heap guys that they generally go after?
I do. I really do, Paul. I think this is going to be a different offseason for them. I don't think they're going to go dumpster diving. I don't think they're going to settle for Tommy Pham. I don't think you're going to see Adam Frazier signed. I never expected them to sign Kyle Schwarber. I don't expect them to sign Cody Bellinger. But, there's a bunch of moves out there they can make, man. And some of them, honestly, are more trade-related than free agent signings. Like Ketel Marte would make a lot of sense for them. Brandon Lau from Tampa Bay would make a lot of sense for them. There's a list of guys, Yandy Diaz, if I'm just like spitting out random names that they could trade for. Jorge Polanco is a free agent signing. That makes a lot of sense. Alec Boehm, he's a free agent signing who makes a lot of sense. There's a couple Japanese sluggers that they could potentially get, and that's somewhere where the Pirates have focused a lot of effort. So, if you're asking me to say, are they going to go to spring training with guys like that actually get people excited? Yeah, maybe I'm drinking the winter meetings Kool-Aid or something. It's actually just Starbucks, but I think they are, man. I really do. That's coming from people who don't work for the Pirates. Like that's coming from people around baseball. That's coming from agents that deal with this team that have absolutely no reason to buy into what they're doing. Like they just have interactions with them and have come away impressed and serious, with what they've been with their actions.
We're talking with Jason Mack in the Post-Gazette for a couple more minutes. Jason, at the winter meetings, obviously a lot of different things go on in terms of transactions and whatnot, but Are there any I know that there is a lot of speculation that there will be a work stoppage after next year. So my question is, are there any riding type issues that are being thrown around down there?
I mean, it's a cap and a floor, Paul. That's what is going to be a cap and a floor and revamped revenue sharing. And I have my doubts whether that's going to be agreed upon before December 2026. I think there's probably going to be a lockout. I have my doubts whether it's ever going to be agreed upon. But I mean, that's what's holding this thing up. Major League Baseball wants one thing, the Players Association wants another, and I'm not sure there's going to be common ground for the two sides. I just don't. I mean, my personal opinion, I'd rather see a salary cap. I think that Major League Baseball would be better off operating like the other three major professional sports leagues. I just don't think that the richest owners, the most powerful people in the sport, the union and all of that, I don't think they're going for it. So, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said that was a big topic here. I'm sure it is in some circles, but I don't think anything that's talked about here is going to be solved. There are much bigger discussions that need to happen privately to try to figure out a solution here.
What are the Pirates going to do at catcher next year?
Yeah, good question, man. I asked Donnie Kelly about this yesterday, and Henry Davis is going to catch a lot. He's been Mitch Keller's guy, he's been Paul Skeen's guy, he's been Bubba Chandler's guy. So, I mean, you got 60% of the rotation. He needs to hit. They need to get more out of him. But it's going to be a tricky thing to get Joey Bart in the lineup. I don't know how they're going to do that. If they sign a DH, that's going to limit his at-bats. If they try to allocate at-bats to Andrew McCutchen, that's going to limit how much he can play. Joey Bart's going to play against left-handed pitchers. I feel confident against that. He was really good against lefties. But I don't know how you can get Joey Bart in the lineup enough unless he becomes your DH or a first baseman. And that's something they will explore. Don Kelly told me that yesterday, that they will, have him taking some ground balls in spring. It's just they tried it before and it never really caught. So we'll see, man. But that's the most logical thing, is to try him at first base and see if he can play there.
Best guess, obviously, you're doing an educated guess because you cover the team. When you look at this team, what is the rotation next year? I mean, obviously, Skeens is the one. You're telling me Keller is going to be around, so they'll have him as, there's probably their second best or whatever.
Yeah.
Who are the other three guys that start the season in the rotation?
All right. So Skeens, Keller, Bubba Chandler, Braxton Ashcraft. Probably the easy answer at that point, Paul, because they traded Johan Oviedo, would be Mike Burrows. I'm going to go complicated and say they sign somebody. I'm going to say they actually sign a left-handed free agent. I think this group really likes that type of pitcher, the typical soft-tossing lefty. Not a good example last year with Andrew Heaney, but, Tyler Anderson, Jose Quintana, they have done well. And I don't know, maybe I'm too old school, but I find it hard to see a rotation that is all right-handed. They need some left-handed help. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Mike Burrows starts in the bullpen or as kind of a swing type, and they sign a lefty. I don't know who, but I say a lefty's there in that fifth spot.
Jason, how many more days are you down there for?
I come home tomorrow night. We have the Rule 5 draft at 2:00, and I fly out at 7.
Oh, speaking of draft, have you heard anything about the MLB draft lottery and where the Pirates might have landed yet, or no?
So let me check. It's happening right as we were doing this. Beasley was down there covering it. I'm going to assume that he tweeted something. And
he said it was getting ready to start, but he hasn't tweeted anything else.
All right. Yeah. Let me if we can vamp for 30 seconds out. I did not see it because it was starting at 5:30 right as we were doing this thing. They turn this thing into a production, don't they? It is way longer than it should be. So I don't see anything.
If the Pirates win the number 1 overall pick, is there another Skeens type player that's available for them?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Paul. I've been living in the hockey world, filling in for Matt Venzel, and I'm down here at the winter meetings. I have not even looked.
Okay.
I think so. Probably a bad answer, but I don't know a whole lot about who's at the top of the draft.
Okay. Jason, thank you so much, man. I know you're busy. Thanks for jumping on. Oh wait, you guys met with Ben Cherington. Did he say anything of interest?
One of the things that he did, and this is what I'm going to be writing about for tomorrow. That it's not about what lands here. Like, I mean, you can look around. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of business taking place, but I think the important part for Cherington, for other teams, is sort of getting a feel for what you're going to be able to accomplish. And to me, I've covered a few of these things. Like, it's notable Cherington saying several times, I feel very confident that we're going to be able to land some stuff. I feel very confident that we're going to be able to land some stuff. Previously, he's always said, yeah, we're going to stay in the mix. We're going to stay on it. It's kind of like a vanilla answer. Like, They are very confident based on what they've learned, the conversations they had, that at some point they're going to get something done. So again, not the most activity here, but that was my takeaway, just like the confidence level that the Pirates have in getting something figured out.
Jason, thank you so much, sir. And
right,
enjoy your last day in Florida.
I will. Take care. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Be good. Thanks. It's Jason Mackey. And, of course, he's talking to us about the Pirates and the fact that they might go out and sign some people. But, again, I'm old, and I'm just going to tell you, I need to see it before I believe it. We'll do it again tomorrow. Until then, enjoy your day.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.